Welcome everyone to Learn from the Experts on collegewell.com. I'm Jonathan Sparling, Director of Partnerships at CollegeWell. Today, our expert is Prem Hira. Prem is the founder of Investry, a holistic financial planning firm that has a mission to help families align their capital with their values. Having a background in investment management and with an MBA from Columbia University, Prem launched Investry to help families map out their financial futures and to make each decision holistically. Prem, thanks so much for joining us to talk What's Your Number? This is definitely a topic that resonates with any family thinking about college, no matter how old their kids are. That magic number can either encourage a family to continue saving or even catch them off guard at some points. And so we know it can certainly carry a lot of weight. So I'm glad we get to talk about it today. So before we jump in to the content, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your firm, Investry?
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan, for that kind intro. My name is Prem. I started Investry very recently in the midst of the pandemic. In fact, on my 50th birthday in September of 2020. I had been running a successful and fairly well-performing value investment fund, but where I had no specific knowledge of any investor's full financial profile. They simply checked the boxes and acknowledged that they understood and could afford all of the stated risks. And we had one simple job to do the best we could with our investment portfolio. But when the pandemic hit, my investors and my broader social network, on the other hand, were asking deep philosophical questions of what they should be invested in, and purpose, whether they were, can they retire early? Can they afford to switch careers and take a few year break? These deeper questions, and I was in no position to answer them. But I found out that I'm a really easy person to talk to about such, important decisions. But as this was getting serious, I knew there were restrictions on the kind of advice I could give. So, I made the plunge and got deeper into helping people make better, more educated decisions on a whole financial life, not just one particular thing.
So today we're talking all about saving for college, and specifically helping families kind of answer that question of what's your number. And when we talk about what's your number, we're talking and referring to the ideal amount that families should save for college. And so, when you sit down and you're speaking with families about saving for college, amongst other financial goals and priorities that they have in their life, where do you start? And assuming they have nothing saved, what's the process you walk them through? Setting up a plan and ultimately mapping out where they should be. So if they have nothing saved, or even if they have something saved. So, talk us through how you're approaching the conversation about saving for college with families to help them think about their number.
Sure. It's seems like it might be a simple question, and I have heard people answer that simply. Oh, it costs, for private colleges, it cost X this year, it'll be X in 2 years, therefore you need to have this much in the bank. And that could be a way to go. I think, a number of, say, a lot of the private colleges I know that are part of your plan, it's not, it's normal for 1 year's room and board right now to be from anywhere from $60,000 to $80,000. So you could, in theory, multiply that by 4 and say, hey, I need 320 grand. And since my kid's not going to school for 8 years, and if inflation on both of those things is 9% a year, hey, it's going to double in 8 years. So I guess I need double that. Mm-hmm. I can give somebody that number if they want the quick 10-second or 30-second answer. Mm-hmm. I don't believe that number is responsible to give to people. I think it can cause unnecessary stress. I think it could cause people to overinvest in a manner that they shouldn't be, because it may put their other goals at risk. Mm-hmm. I think it really first, matters how you see education in the happiness of your whoever the student you're planning for is, and I'm acting like it's a parental responsibility, but sometimes it's children on their own want to do this on their own. They want to earn whatever they put towards college. They don't want to take anything from their parents, either because they feel like the parents can't afford it. I think that was a Steve Jobs reason for quitting after a first year. Not that you think they couldn't afford it, but thought it was, for the money they were paying, he didn't think they should be paying that. So, you look for the stories and hints that that this isn't a simple question. You can find them all through our own pop culture here. Mm-hmm. So how do you think about it? Yeah, it really depends on what you and it's hard to know at 18, 19, 20 what you want to do, but depends on your profession and what your likely earnings are. And is your college supposed to be an investment to pay that back, or is it for a different purpose? So I'm giving you a long-winded answer. It all depends. So I think it really does help for any family, if they're trying to figure out this number and are looking for professional advice, to make sure that whoever's asking for this advice does really take your whole financial picture and your goals. If you want to go to engineering school where starting salaries straight when you come out are easily six figures from a good school, hey, do what you need to do. If somebody has interest where college may not even be necessary, you might be looking more at a trade school or a few years work experience to figure out what you want to do. So yeah, simple answer is, hey, save 80 grand a year and inflate it 8-9% a year. And ideally have a good savings vehicle or investment vehicle for that. My more long-winded answer is really try not to make this decision independently. Because it's probably your biggest investment. Maybe a home will be more, but otherwise it's probably your biggest investment.
Let's say you get to the point, or you're working with them and they're like, Prem, like, this is great. Like, we've thought about it. We want to save, like we know we need to save. And they are leaning more towards, all right, maybe we do need a hard number and we haven't started saving at all.
Yeah.
So where would you, in that scenario, where would you kind of take someone that you're working with, or what's kind of the thought process that you would walk them through? Because I know you already mentioned about looking at current costs and tuition inflation and things like that.
Yeah, great question, and I do want to add some color to that. Inflation number is that while the sticker price for college has been going up, at twice the rate of normal inflation or more, that's not necessarily what people pay, and I don't think everybody knows that. I think until you're very close to having, to pay for tuition, or you happen to have, relatives that have just done it, it's pretty common to have, a complete wrong idea. If you watch any news headlines or or newspaper headlines, you probably don't realize that scholarships and aid are a huge part of paying for college, and sometimes the best way to do it, even if you have the means to write the check. Helping people realize that, first of all, and there are tools to do that. It's easy enough to research what the sticker price is. It's not quite as easy to research what is the likely actual out-of-pocket cost going to be. So again, I encourage people to use tools to start that, because it doesn't help anybody to get stressed by a number that's not going to be even close to being accurate. And one of the tools I use is called College Aid Pro. There is an advisor version, but there's also a self-serve version, and it helps you let's say gather all this information, which is already available on the university websites, but it helps you compile it and see what might be the average scholarships for somebody with this GPA or this field of interest or from this state. So their mission is to have people shop for college the way they shop for almost everything else in life. We have a tendency, or at least people in my family and certainly in my neighborhood community, to think about where they want to go, apply, see where they get in, and then start thinking about how to pay for it, or at least, yeah, at least have that not be the first, the payment part be the first factor. Where College Aid Pro, the way the whole process of the tool works is to, first start shopping. What are you willing to pay, and what is your system of paying for it, and how long is it going to take you to pay it back, based on, some idea of a major or an initial salary, so that people know, okay, fine, it's going to be an investment that I'll have to,
Mhm.
it'll take 10 years to pay back, it'll take 20 years to pay back.
For families with younger children that might have a little more of a runway, how are you, how do those conversations typically go?
Good question. So let's think. Let's think, and I guess the simplest, roundest number. Say if your child is 10 years away from finishing high school, using the rule of 72, if we project that college tuition will continue to increase at 8 to 9%, that means we need in 8 to 9 years for today's rates to double. So if today we're paying about $60,000 to $80,000 for the private colleges, some of the private colleges that are in your program, and that certainly my clients are interested in. Yeah, that's going to increase to about $160,000, and by the time they're ready, times four, maybe a little more than four, if that gets inflated even in those 4 years. But I think that's a large number to think about. But I try to guide my clients to have half of it saved over half the duration. So say by the time they're in 8th grade, if they can have half that saved, they're being responsible. And it doesn't need to be all their money, right? I mean, there are plenty of times their grandkids or other relatives that don't have kids that want to contribute, if you give them the opportunity, which is why we're seeing more and more 529 plans have, nice little codes you can send, or little gift cards that they can send, reminders that my birthday is coming, my child's birthday is coming up. These are welcome things, I've found. They may seem like it would be uncomfortable conversations, but people want to help each other. Give them a good opportunity to help, they will.
Yeah.
But yeah, the other reason I like that half point is then you aren't necessarily excluding yourself then from other scholarships and aid that may be, that may be preferable, in fact, to paying yourself. And that may be, through, athletics, maybe through education, certain field of interest, right? As much as the elite schools may seem like they're just harder and harder to get into, they also still are looking for specific types of people, and different years. They have different, different incentives each year, and in different parts of the country. So, putting yourself out there and doing the real research, it's one of the things that people sometimes tend to shop for and then figure out how to pay later. It's I think this is part of the process of not just doing that, do the real shopping, and 1 week a year starting 8th grade is much better than getting really, really nervous, when you're in 11th grade, or just, putting in too much money when you're too young, just making a lot of assumptions, and
Right.
And then getting disappointed when those funds aren't used the way you thought they would be.
Yeah. No, I think that's important. And especially kind of taking advantage, right? And obviously the younger the child, the more runway in theory that folks have, but then also kind of balancing that with, again, thinking through the values of the family, and knowing that things might change. And so, I think that's a good kind of, if you're thinking about saving for college, it's what are costs looking like now, looking at kind of projected inflation, and then getting to a point where, about half, if possible. And certainly we know some will be less, which is okay, because any little bit helps, but then some might be more as well. How often should I reevaluate my college savings goal or my college savings number? Is it once a year? Is it twice a year? Is it, is there kind of set, like, okay, I'm moving along. How often should I check this?
Good question. Yeah, you want this to be, you want to, pay attention to this and keep your eye on the ball, but yeah, not so much that it's going to, keep you keep you up at night.
Right.
I would suggest that, an investment in anything, whether it's in college savings or saving for for a home or any other investment to retire, it shouldn't really be looked at more than once a year.
Yeah.
If I'm doing my job, after a couple of years, they really don't even want to meet that third year. No, we do, but they don't think it's necessary. They're wondering, well, I thought we've kind of figured everything out, and things are on autopilot. But
Right.
but yes, life circumstances change, and I do consider it my responsibility to ask, are these still your goals?
Right.
We've set this thing in motion. You don't even notice this, auto payment coming out of your checking account. That's great. I've done my job at that time to get you in the good habits. Now my job is to make sure whether, things that are automated should still be automated. So
Right.
I would say at least every 2 years, and certainly as you get past, once the children are in middle school, I think each year.
Yeah.
Not only because of your own family's priorities and circumstances, but yeah, the landscape changes.
I think that's a really good point though, right? It's not only looking at kind of the savings on an ongoing basis, but also kind of the changing landscape of college, right? And population. And then we also know that the child's preference might change along the way too. And I think that's, from the saving standpoint, good to save, good to have finances, good to have, money set aside, obviously to defray any costs that you might
Good to have the options for sure.
Good to have the options. Absolutely. But as you get closer, kind of, really kind of thinking about, all right, what does this mean from an enrollment standpoint?
I was very surprised, happily surprised, as I looked, at out-of-pocket cost versus sticker cost for many of the country's top schools. There's a big divergence.
Yeah.
The top schools, if you fit every other characteristic, every other qualification,
Mhm.
a lot of them that they want you. If you can't
Right.
afford it, it's not a big deal, right? I think some have said it publicly. I think Stanford is one of them that
Mm.
says they have a blind acceptance policy. If you can't afford, they're still going to figure out a way to get to put
Right.
you through the system. And others, I think, less officially, but yeah, you can find scholarships and aid, and schools, and it is some of the better schools and some of the more competitive schools once you fit
Right.
the other needs.
What are some common roadblocks that you see clients come across when saving for college or really saving anywhere, and how can they get back on track?
Well, this is going to be a little self-promotional, but I think the at least the types of families that I'm attracting are ones that know they actually have a difficulty with sticking to plans, with mapping things out. And these can be super smart, super financially successful people, or that just budgeting and personal financial planning is its own specialty, and there's psychology to it, there's emotion to it, there's family dynamics. There's relationships with money that we carry from our birth, and those might be different in each, even in two partners in a marriage, say, that might hinder people from saving the right way. There's
Right.
people, I think, would generally want the best for their for their kids and their next
Yeah.
generation. Yeah, I will go with the emotional and psychological hindrances as being the ones that I see the most.
Mhm.
I see in dollars and cents, I need to save, $6,000 a year if I want to have this much saved by the time my child's, ready to go to college. But somehow each of the last 3 years, I've only saved 3,000. We can't seem to cut our other expenses. And that's where, it may seem silly, but that's where I think, getting stuff automated really does help.
We talked about a lot today, for
Yeah.
sure. Thinking about, again, kind of that value of college and approaching the conversation, it is very much a family decision, talking about kind of saving, reaching that number or thinking about that number, either like hard number, here's what to save for, or more conceptually, how often to reevaluate, what's important, or how do we get over some of those roadblocks, some of those psychological roadblocks. And so, Prem, I want to thank you again very much for taking the time to speak with us. Before we let you go, any final words of advice for families who are starting or kind of continuing their college savings, and any other resources that you may recommend for folks?
Yeah, my advice is probably just broad life advice. Speak to people in your community. A lot of financial decisions can feel lonely, and looking on the internet, it can feel like there's infinite amount of information, and that you'll never get through it. But if you are open enough to meet with people in your community, whether it's at your school, or there's usually educational events at your local library or community center, I found that it takes a lot of the pressure off. You feel like you're not in it alone, and that there are systems in place, and yeah, then you can make your decisions hopefully more calmly, and as I say, more holistically.
I love it. Well, thanks again, Prem. It's always great speaking with financial advisors, our financial advisor partners, looking at these topics together and really helping families get on the right path. Please check out Prem's information online at investry.com. And as always, we encourage you to head over to collegewell.com for more education and guidance from the experts. You have folks like Prem, and you've got collegewell.com.